Hey, I'm Tristan with Mahalo, and we are here at Hip Cooks in West LA, and today we are talking about stuffing, and I'm going to show you how to make it. Let's get started talking about the breadcrumbs, an important part of stuffing, of course. I've chosen today just to use sourdough, and this is one of the elements of stuffing that you can change to make your own. Sourdough is a nice basic white bread, though, that makes for great stuffing. Homemade breadcrumbs. Easily tear apart a loaf like I've done here, just in big chunks like this, and then it goes into the oven to toast them and dry them out. So you can kind of hear they're nice and dry, and they're going to absorb the butter and the broth really well. If you like more of the uniform look of breadcrumbs, you can take your loaf, grocery store loaf easily, and just take out pieces at a time and cut them into squares. And that way you can have what may be to you a traditional looking stuffing filling, and then these get toasted as well. So that is our breadcrumbs. Butter, butter, butter. Easily 1 stick of butter. Unsalted, we'll salt later. That salted butter tends to have additional saline in it. That's not the freshest, not the best choice. So if you can always stick with unsalted butter and then just know that you'll be adding butter on your own. Salt on your own. You'll be adding salt on your own. I'm gonna scrape off. You don't want to waste a thing. So 1 stick butter. Some recipes might call for 1.5. I tend to get it to about 1 stick, and we're thinking about serving for 10 to 12 people and going in a turkey that's about 12 pounds to 14 pounds. So as this melts on medium heat, let's talk about what goes into this traditional stuffing. Celery, mushrooms, onions, and then herbs of your choice. Today I had some fresh sage out of my garden, so that's what I'm choosing to use. If you don't have access to fresh herbs, you can use dry herbs just the same. And then fresh parsley was in my garden as well, so I've pre-chopped that, and that will nicely add some great color and flavor to our stuffing. So for this stuffing, I have chopped for 1 onion, which is about 2 cups. And I will dump this into the butter and get that browning. Celery as well. It's good to leave those leaves on your celery stalk because these add a nice flavor. And celery is great because it adds a earthy, nutty flavor to your stuffing. So slice down the middle. Make these pieces little. Honestly, when you bite into stuffing, you don't want to taste like a big crunch of celery. So you want to make them fine and slice away into little pieces. Okay, so this is our celery here. And that is about 1 cup celery, or 4 stalks. This is really approximate. If you want to go with specific amounts, that's fine. If you don't like celery, cut back on the celery. If you really like celery, add celery. If you don't like yellow onions, use white onions. It's really all going to come out the same. Mushrooms, to add a nice nutty, meaty flavor. Keep the stalks with the mushroom because those tend to have the most flavor. The head of the mushroom has good flavor, but the stalks are pretty meaty and add that really distinct mushroom flavor. So with all that in, we want to start absorbing the butter, getting them sauteed. I'll crank up the heat a little bit now. And just stir. Let it get going. You'll start to hear it sizzle. You'll start to see the brown of the onions soften up a bit. While I wait for the mixture here in the pot to soften up, I'm going to chop some sage. So an easy way to chop sage is to layer the leaves. And this is really similar for basil too. You'll layer the leaves, stack the leaves, and then roll them up into a little roll, and then slice. Hold it and slice it down. And you end up with really nicely julienned bits of sage. For this though, we do want our pieces to be smaller, so I'll give it a brief cut across here so that the pieces are small. And you can estimate about 1.5 teaspoons of sage. Just sprinkle that in. If you really love sage, add more sage. If you don't like sage, don't use sage. You can also use thyme, rosemary, but this is what I had in my garden, so this is what I've chosen to use. Parsley, an easy chop. I'd say a couple tablespoons, and this just adds a really nice flavor and color of freshness to the stuffing. With all that butter, it's nice to have a little bit of freshness with your stuffing. Okay, we have our onions, celery, mushroom, sage, sauteing nicely here in the pan with a little sprinkle of parsley. And this is going to be for the basis of our casserole stuffing, which makes for a great alternative if you have any vegetarians coming to dinner. We will use about 2.5 cups vegetable broth to go into the stuffing, and that way you can offer your vegetarian guests something that's not coming out of the turkey, that has the turkey broth with it, of course. 7.5 cups approximately of toasted breadcrumbs. So I've got my little duck here, and these will just get dumped into here. So that is 7.5 cups of breadcrumbs, or bread pieces. Just give that a little stir. We'll start to slowly absorb the butter. And then I want to add 2.5 cups vegetable broth. And this box is 4 cups, so I'm going to average about half, a little more than half. Breadcrumbs will start to moisten. And with the casserole, because you're not getting the additional turkey juices, you do want to have more vegetable stock than you would for your turkey stuffing. So if you're choosing to do 2, think extra moisture because ovens tend to dry stuffing out. Let that sit. We can turn off the heat now. I have the oven set at 350, and while that is absorbing, I'll take a little bit of butter and just with my hand, grease this casserole dish just so we don't get sticky breadcrumbs after it comes out of the oven. If you have Pam, that's fine. Olive oil, you can use that as well. So it's really just up to you. Give that one last stir. And give your stuffing a sniff, actually, a smell, and see if you can smell the sage or the parsley. And if you can't, then go ahead and add more. The smell of your stuffing will tell a lot about how it tastes. Salt and pepper. Sprinkle, sprinkle. And you can see in my hand that that's about a half a teaspoon to start. Depending on the amount of sodium in your broth will depend on how much salt you want in your stuffing. And then a couple twists of the pepper grinder. So, dumping this into the casserole dish and then into the oven. And you can see that it's pretty moist. That's what we want, because this is all the moisture it gets for the cooking process. And the lovely color with the celery and the parsley, very appetizing. And then it gets popped into the oven for about 45 minutes. So our casserole stuffing is done. It's been 45 minutes, so it's ready to pull it out of the oven. So as you can see, the green parsley and the green sage and celery have been cooked away, the color has. So I always think it's nice to add a little bit of extra sage, fresh sage and fresh parsley to the top, just to add that little bit of color for presentation. Many people take their dishes as they are out of the oven and present them or put them on a buffet or bring them to the dinner table. And if you add this extra little bit of loveliness, it will be noticed at the table. So just this little bit of grayish, greenish sage and a little sprinkle of parsley, and it's ready for the table. If you'd like to see me prepare any other dishes, please send an email to request@Mahalodotcom. And in the meantime, check out all of our other awesome videos.